Here with this week's hottest stories in the investment world, this is Zacks Friday Finish Line.
Hello and welcome back to the Zacks Friday Finish Line. I'm Ryan McQueeney, an associate stock strategist here at Zacks, joined as always by one of our editors, Maddy Johnson.
Hello, today is Friday, December 28th, and we're here to recap some of this week's wild market activity. It was really wild. And also look back on what has been a crazy year for the retail industry, one of our favorite topics of discussion here on the Finish Line.
Yes, a shortened week it was, but a crazy few days it has most certainly been. The government shutdown rages on. I think we're, day 7 officially now?
Yeah.
And while that's going on, stocks behaved very strangely on not too much news. So notably, Monday marked one of the worst Christmas Eve sessions in U.S. stock market history. The Dow shed more than 600 points. And there was finally this sense of panic among some influential figures.
Yeah, the investor panic seeped outwards.
Yes, and it felt like we were waiting for this kind of capitulation event of, okay, when are we going to just flush all this out and really have our panic day? And that's kind of what Monday felt like. And, you know, the reason why I say that is we had Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin on Sunday spending a lot of his day near the holidays. He probably went to hang out with his family, take really expensive flights or whatever he and his wife did that one time that got them in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
But he spent his Sunday calling around to the top 6 banks and asking their executives questions. And it turned out that he was polling them. What the reports indicated after the fact were that he was asking them about the government shutdown and about the recent market volatility and about the Fed and just kind of getting their sentiment on all those things. And the conclusion was, for the most part, U.S. economy is still doing quite well. There was some sense, though, that there was at least initial reports that he was calling to ask about debt leverage, credit leverage, and liquidity, which is like, that's something maybe that we'd have gotten in 2008 when we're phoning banks around and we're saying, hey, are you going to survive this?
Yeah.
And people were like, whoa, I didn't realize it had gotten to that point. Turns out that's not really what the whole thing was about anyway. Just kind of calling around and say, what's up? How you doing? But we had that to think about on Monday, and it caused a crazy shortened day. I think the stock market closed at 2 Eastern. Yeah, so high volume for a shortened day, which is you don't always see.
Yeah. And then on Wednesday, day after Christmas, the S&P was like, nothing. Rallies.
That was it. That was
rallies.
the bottom.
5% in the Dow. So S&P rallies 5%. The Dow posted its best ever daily gain in terms of points. But the swing has continued on Thursday, and just like that, stocks have given up about half of those gains through early afternoon trading. However, only to surge sharply into the green on the day. So the S&P is now on a winning streak, which has become a rarity in recent weeks. It was like, you can see kind of like a pendulum swinging.
Yes.
with the market.
A 2-day winning streak, something to celebrate, certainly here
Absolutely.
within the last couple of months after a lot of selling. And yeah, as you mentioned, it was like at about 2 o'clock our time, so it would have been about 3 Eastern. The entire day's trend just reversed, and we shot up like a rocket and ended sharply higher on Thursday. Then we opened higher this morning, helped by foreign markets finally picking up some of the slack and following Wall Street's lead. I think that's why Thursday was a weird rocky day, as we got that strong Wall Street rebound on Wednesday, and then the foreign markets said, no thanks, we're not having it on Thursday.
Thank you, next.
We finally saw Europe pick up a little bit of slack, and maybe we'll see another 3-day in a row. That could be great.
Yeah.
We'll see. But certainly much too early to predict that. But as I kind of hinted at earlier, interestingly enough, at least something that interests me about this is that basically all of these moves are coming with little to no news. So this raises some questions. Is this an unhealthy market? Should we be going from down 400 points to up 200 points in the matter of 35 minutes with no news coming in? Was this bottom that we created on Monday the actual bottom that we've been looking for, which suspiciously was just right around that 20% range, down 20% range that we would have started talking official bear market? So these are questions I'm asking. These are questions other people are asking. And I don't know if I don't have the answers. So.
I don't have the answers. I don't think anyone has the answers. I feel like the answers come well after the fact, in my humble opinion. And again, we likely won't know for sure, like you said, until volume picks up back after the New Year's holiday. But with that in mind, and with the lack of major headlines coming from this week, we're going to take a moment to reflect, to look back on this year, on 2018. Specifically, we thought we'd do a retrospective look at a few of the major headlines from one of our favorite sectors, retail.
Yes.
Shopping.
Big year for shopping.
Big year.
Big year for shopping trends
Consumer
and for
spending
companies.
high, yeah.
Yeah, just as you mentioned, it's funny because we typically spend this show recapping the news that moved the market. And since there was such little news that moved the market this week, the news was how the market moved based off of no news. It's a real
Nice tongue twist.
Yeah, it's a real brain exercise. So I thought, let's just describe what happened and then move on. And by moving on, to truly move on, you have to look backwards. And we're at a perfect time of the year to look backwards. Biggest retail stories of 2018. And we're going to say the A word to start it off. Amazon. And it's not really one headline per se, but just Amazon continuing to control the conversation, to dominate our news cycles, to capture our attention throughout the course of the year.
Yeah.
Of course, Amazon continues to dominate the North American e-commerce market and many of the e-commerce markets of the places it operates abroad. And, we just couldn't stop talking about what Jeff Bezos was up to this year, be it investing in this, that, and the other thing.
He probably planted chips in our heads while we're sleeping.
Showing up to different award shows all glammed out.
Yeah.
Big
The
year
glow
for
up
Bezos.
was real for Bezos.
Definitely. Money makes you look a whole lot better.
It does.
But a couple things that Amazon did certainly do this year that are important to note. Doubling down on physical store sales, or physical stores themselves. It unleashed the Amazon Go concept outside of Seattle and rolled them out to several new markets, including here in downtown Chicago. We now have a couple down here in downtown Chicago, which is nice.
2 within walking distance from our office.
Yeah, it's like they knew that we'd be interested in it. There are now 8 Amazon Go's in operation, and Amazon reportedly wants to bring that number up to as high as 3,000 by 2021. Ambitious growth plan there. Not sure if that's a achievable target, but more power to them.
Sure.
Amazon has also made a lot of headlines throughout the course of the year for its search for a second headquarters, HQ2, which, as we covered on this show, turned out to be HQ2 and HQ3. They decided and concluded their search in early November, announcing that Amazon has selected Long Island City, New York, and Arlington, Virginia, for building its new headquarters, plural. So that was a bit of a curveball and a really interesting story that was many people were fascinated by throughout the course of 2018.
And perplexed and mad and still protesting.
Yeah, and so apparently Amazon intends to create more than 25,000 jobs in each of these areas. And if that were it period, that's it. That probably isn't that big of a story. But, well, I mean, that's a lot of jobs. So that's a story in and of itself. But there's a lot more that we had a lot of conversations about that throughout the course of the year, and those conversations included what kind of tax benefits are they getting from these places.
Turns out a lot.
Yes, quite a bit. Can a place like Long Island City or Arlington, Virginia, just welcome 25,000 new people, 25,000 new tech employees, and roll them out and fit them right into the public transportation system and fit them right into the residential system and that type of stuff. What is this going to do for housing and transportation in these areas? This was kind of a sub story from the HQ2 search. And I'm not really sure that story is over yet. I think that's a big ongoing thing that we'll continue to hear about in 2019.
Absolutely.
As these areas get developed. But the other big Amazon story I wanted to talk about from this year, which is something that felt like really picked up in 2018 and something that we kept coming back to, was the growth of its advertising business. Everything from little stories like, hey, why are there paid ad placements in my wedding registry that I made on Amazon, to wow, this Amazon ad business is getting really, really big. Just to give you a sense of that, expected to finish 2018 with 4.1% share of all domestic digital ad spending. That would be bigger than Verizon's Oath division and Microsoft's exposure to the ad business as well. So
yeah, a huge behemoth.
Definitely a new heavyweight. And yeah, so that's just looking back, a big year.
So maybe those 3,000 Amazon Go stores could be achievable.
Yeah. A big year for Amazon with the Amazon Go HQ2 and the growth of the ad business and many, many more things. Not a day goes by that Amazon isn't making headlines. Raising the minimum wage for hourly workers to 15, didn't even mention that. So certainly one where I think just looking back on the year, the story is, yep, we're still talking about Amazon and we're still talking about Amazon taking over the world. And, you know, to move on to our next big story, you know, when we talk about Amazon, we also have to talk about Amazon's biggest rivals.
Absolutely. And one of their biggest rivals was Walmart. And they continued their, if you could call it, their acquisition spree. And they made a huge move to seize a major slice of the growing e-commerce industry in India. So Walmart bought a 77% stake in the largest online retailer in India. And this is Flipkart. And this is so by Walmart purchasing the stake, this valuing Flipkart at around $22 billion. So in 2017, India's e-commerce market stood at $38.5 billion. And this is expected to rise to $200 billion by 2026. So that's no small number. India, one of the fastest growing economies. Walmart will get a chance to forge a strong foothold into the market with Flipkart. So Flipkart has channel expertise, streamlined supply chain management, and financial strength to take on Amazon. So the CEO of Walmart, Doug McMillon, said that innovation, payments, and sourcing of products are the areas where the company would be able to guide Flipkart in return for logistical and technical support, as well as a massive warehouse network. This was a huge move for Walmart, probably I think their biggest acquisition since buying Jet.com.
Yeah.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
2 years ago now?
One of their biggest ever, actually.
Yeah. And Amazon, I think for their part, has had a tougher time moving into India.
Sure.
And this was it was an easier way for Walmart to get into the market, buying Flipkart and just being kind of like the parent company. Flipkart's going to still operate independently, I believe. Mm-hmm. But Walmart's just kind of going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the cash, the easiest way to become the number one guy in a new country is to just buy the existing segment leader and be like, that's ours now. We're here.
That's what Walmart did.
And interesting that, as you noted, the kind of reciprocal benefits that, you know, Flipkart continuing to maintain and operate as under that brand. But it's not just Walmart coming in and saying, hey, little guy, we're here, we own you now, and that's going to help us. But, you know, there are certainly things Walmart can offer Flipkart that benefits that business and vice versa.
And that's what Walmart has done with, I think, a lot of their smaller acquisitions as well.
Especially when they move into other countries, they have relationships. It kind of seems like it's similar to what they've done in China, where they have their physical stores and then they have relationships with the likes of JD.com. And then you kind of leverage that physical store presence with delivery and same-day pickup and same-day delivery type of stuff. Looking a little bit different because I don't think Walmart's physical store presence is much, if anything, in India right now. But it's a similar kind of perspective on it where you come in and you work with what's already there as opposed to just
inserting yourself.
Yeah. Which is kind of, I don't know if that's necessarily Amazon's move all the time, but it certainly feels like when Amazon wants to do something,
they just like make a big, I don't know. They remind me of like a T-Rex kind of like stomping down.
Yeah.
And being like, I'm here now.
Yeah. And they do that through a variety of ways, you know, hiring executives, stealing talent, if you will. Anytime we hear Amazon is up to something, it's typically like hey, they just hired 3 people that are doing pharmacy, that have done pharmacy retail their entire lives. And we're like, suspicious. I wonder if they're interested in getting into pharmacy.
And then like shares of CVS and Walgreens are down 4%.
They just hired a bunch of logistics experts. I wonder if that Amazon-owned shipping company is really coming together.
UPS and FedEx. Well, yeah.
But on this topic of e-commerce, we're going to bring it back here to the United States of America, where the domestic e-commerce industry was spooked, rattled, affected by a major Supreme Court decision over the summer. It took place in June, and it was a Supreme Court ruling on the case South Dakota versus Wayfair et al. The court voted 5-4, and that vote overturned a 1992 ruling that exempted sellers from collecting sales tax on transactions with customers in states where the seller did not have a physical presence. How did this actually work out legally? Well, in the Wayfair case, the court basically upheld a new South Dakota regulation that required online sellers who deliver a total of $100,000 in goods and services or who make more than 200 transactions annually in the state to collect a flat statewide sales tax. The loophole for many, many years has been if we don't have a physical presence in the state, we don't have to collect the sales tax in that state. South Dakota said, no. And then these e-commerce companies come in, Wayfair leading them, as we can see from the title of the case. They come in, they challenge that rule. So the Supreme Court upholds the new regulation, which simultaneously overturns a previous Supreme Court decision. So it's a big moment in terms of you're reversing precedent and establishing this new ruling.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was only applying to South Dakota because they had the law in question. But since that's now the federal precedent, presumably other states are going to come in and capitalize or are already working on doing that. It's been estimated that all the states piling on and doing the South Dakota rule, if you want to call it that, would create $8 billion to $34 billion annually in additional state tax revenue. So certainly a lot of states that would like that. A lot of I think every state. We could certainly use it in the state of Illinois with our budget crisis going on. This was received, I think, positively by traditional retailers, the National Retail Federation,
especially brick and mortar retailers.
Yes, of course, and this has been a major gripe of these companies for such a long time. The National Retail Federation stated after the ruling that they believe it will create a level playing field for traditional sellers to compete with online retail. Amazon kind of already doing this. Amazon collected sales tax on things that it fulfilled in like its own goods.
Right.
The third-party sellers, though, that was the next question is Amazon going to be responsible for the third-party sellers collecting tax in all these cases and all these new states where taxes could be collected? The biggest questions were obviously for the likes of the Wayfairs and the Overstocks, where they're much smaller, their profitability, their profit margins are even thinner, and they were really benefiting from the fact that people could go on and avoid the sales tax and get the cheaper purchase. And while we talk about this being a better thing for traditional retailers and creating a level playing field, let's not forget that these traditional retailers also have e-commerce platforms that have been big sources of growth for them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Taxes, one of the biggest stories of the year for retail, if you'd believe that.
I know.
And it's taxes, but it's not the massive tax cut that everybody got at the beginning of the year or really late last year. So definitely, talking a lot about rules and regulations this year. And with that, we're going to transition to, I think, a great way to end the episode, because it's a little bit of looking back, but it's also looking forward, and that is another kind of general, vague topic, but it has to do with the intersection of tech and retail in 2018.
So, yeah, this year saw quite a few e-commerce companies. They were actually forced to catch up with what brick and mortar retailers had been doing for years. So for as an example, Amazon opening up,
Physical
physical
stores,
stores, their bookstores, these Amazon Go stores. But this year, we also saw a lot of traditional retailers adopt more new technology than ever before. So, for example, shoppers saw the first ever Facebook pop-up shops this season. So the social media giants kiosks popping up in 9 Macy's stores to highlight small businesses and online favorites. That's an interesting partnership for Macy's. Classic department store icon that has showed no fear in its efforts to modernize. Macy's also invested more in its VR furniture shopping offerings this year. That's also a really cool way to shop for furniture. I know a lot of interior design pages on Instagram, for example, will allow you to take a picture of your bedroom, living room, and see what a particular sofa or chair looks like in your room, which is, I guess, applying VR furniture shopping technology. So that's cool that Macy's is adopting that as well. But overall, we saw that trend show up throughout brick and mortar retail too. Companies spent a ton of cash on pay and aisle technology, data analytics software too, to make more sense of consumer data, invoice shopping capabilities. So I don't know if you shopped this year at a Nordstrom Rack. I think Banana Republic does it too, Gap, where if you're just shopping around the store and you see an employee with an iPhone and it's a really chunky looking iPhone or an iPod, and if you have shopping with a credit card, you'll be oh, you can check out literally around the store.
Yes.
Insert the card in the bottom.
Yep.
That's
No line.
I know Nordstrom Rack has been doing that for a while now. I guess Nordstrom, JWN, in their Nordstrom Rack stores specifically, because the lines there are notoriously long.
Yeah.
All year.
Yeah.
So they'll set up little omni-channel desk sites around the store, the table and the shopper or the employee will be there with their iPod. And if you're paying with card, you can just check out right there. They have to have this table thing because for all the hangers and everything.
Sure.
But yeah, that's really cool. Very convenient. Anyways, I'm glad that more stores, companies are adopting that as well. But all of these things serve to offer new in-store experiences. The retail experience is becoming more and more important. But as we saw this year, whatever is working because more consumers are spending, more customers are in stores shopping, buying clothes, electronics, whatever.
Great holiday shopping quarter or great holiday shopping season.
Yeah.
Holiday shopping, fastest growth in 6 years. So we certainly saw a lot of people at the stores for a number of reasons. Pretty solid consumer spending environment.
There was a lot of optimism heading into the holiday shopping season, which helped.
And then all of a sudden, even we were expecting solid holiday shopping sales, and then all of a sudden gas got super cheap, and
Gas
people
got really cheap.
had a little bit of extra cash that they might not have even been planning on.
So I live just north of Rockford, Illinois. Well, I don't live. My parents live there. I grew up there. I live in Chicago. I don't commute every day. That would be a very long commute.
People do it though.
People do it.
Yeah.
They do it. My parents have had an old neighbor that did it every day, and I don't know how she did it. Anyways, there was, I think there was a Walmart or a Casey's that was having or advertising gas for $1.99. That's just so cheap. Versus $2.16 down the road, but even $2.16 is crazy cheap too.
Right.
But yeah, that helped a lot. Anyways, moving on to
future.
More retail tech experiences. The future retail tech spending is expected to grow 3.6% in 2019. And this is according to a poll by research firm Gartner.
Yes. So
just expect more convenient ways to shop in store.
We end our look back by looking forward.
Yes.
So that's perfect. I do want to say, quick thing, honorable mentions. We touched on 4 stories there. Honorable mentions, the trade war. I don't think retail was the biggest part of that in terms of capturing our attention, but retailers, be them online, be them in store, do a lot of importing things. You get a lot of goods, especially in the textiles industry, from abroad. from China specifically. We saw some of these types of goods get caught up in the new tariffs. So in many ways, the trade war was obviously a big story. I think part of me just didn't want to include it in this list because holy cow, are we sick of talking about it?
We are sick of talking about it. 2, it feels never ending. 3, it will probably...
It'll be the biggest story of 2019 as well.
Absolutely. So we will probably talk about it soon. Don't worry.
And then the Sears bankruptcy, which feels very relevant to today and very must mention it today because this could be the last day of Sears ever. That basically, if a bid doesn't come in today, which in the time we've been speaking to each other, I guess it could have happened because this is very down to the wire. But
I also saw, speaking of sad department store stories, I also saw that JCPenney on a Market Watch bulletin is now a penny stock.
Yeah, it's the sub $1. Yeah, that's no good. So and that's, I guess that's kind of a story within itself. Is this as much as those retailers that have had a good year have been adapting and evolving and working with this new climate, we really saw the separation between those companies and those that haven't been able to keep up, like the Searses and the JCPenney's of the world that are really on the brink. Sears, though, like literally teetering on the brink today.
One.
So we'll see if they
Bonton
liquidate.
Bonton Inc., which is Bergner's, Carson's, Yonkers. They went bankrupt earlier this year.
Yes.
So
maybe honorable mention
department stores
and sad song for the ones that didn't make it through 2018. But definitely, we've covered this year's bankruptcy, and I think the last time we talked about it, there was hope that Eddie Lampert's fund was going to come in and swoop in and save the day and keep a bunch of stores open and a bunch of jobs. That might not happen, and if there's no bid today, it liquidates, which is bad news. So a swan song for Sears and Bonton and the rest that didn't make it through 2018. Those are the biggest stories, though, from retail of 2018. What did we miss? I'm sure we missed something. I was really stressing when I was looking at these notes. So I was like, we're probably missing a really, really big one. But if you think we missed something, or if you want us to cover a different story, maybe in a couple weeks look forward to 2019 and think of what could be the biggest stories in this business. Or if you want us to do something retrospective on a different industry, anything, shoot us an email at podcast@zacks.com. You can also check out all of our other exclusive audio content at zacks.com/podcasts. Remember to subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next year.
Have a good new year. Make good resolutions.
Yes. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year to you, Maddy.
Yeah. Thank you. What are your New Year's resolutions?
Don't have any yet. No. My New Year's resolution is to come back and continue being a killer podcast host. Be the best podcast host I can be.
But that's a good one. That's a good one.
I think we should both do that New Year's resolution.
I will add that to... That will be the first one on my list.
Perfect.
Yes.
So with that, we'll sign off for the last time in 2018. See you next time on the Zacks Friday Finish Line.